And welcome to the latest episode of the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I am Chicago Bears beat reporter Michael Dwojak here with the Northwest Herald's Joe Aguilar. As we are joining you guys on Friday morning, it's the day before the big wild card game between the Bears and the Packers at Soldier Field at 7 o'clock p.m. Bears' first playoff game since 2020, Soldier Field's first playoff game since 2018. Two bitter rivals who are just going to play against each other just the third time in their history. But I don't really feel like there are a lot of superlatives needed, Joe, for this matchup on Saturday night.
No, you just have to say Bears Packers, and that's enough, right? And this one just so happens to be in a playoff game. Let's hope it's a better turnout by the Bears than 2010. I was at that game covering it for the Daily Herald. Still have bad memories of that game. So it's been 15 years, but all the players are gone from back then. But it'll be a good one Saturday night, tomorrow night.
Yeah, it should be an electric atmosphere. Should be a lot of fun. Just obviously Saturday night. We saw obviously a few weeks ago when the Bears hosted the Packers last time, and how ruckus of an environment that was on a Saturday night playoffs. Obviously against the Packers. I don't feel like there's going to be much needed to get you ready for a Saturday night matchup, but we'll try to do our best here over the next hour. If you're joining us on YouTube, thanks so much. I see we got some guys joining us already. Got the chats going on, so make sure you guys are asking any of your questions or comments in the live stream here on YouTube. While you're here, make sure you give us a like and subscribe. That's the best way to support us, help grow our subscription numbers, and also helps you know when we're going to be going live. Follow us on social media. Thank you to everyone who's joining us on Facebook as well. I see we've got some likes, some loves. We can see your comments and questions as well. So if you have anything you want to ask or want us to address, make sure you just give us a comment there on Facebook, and we should be able to see them. And then if you're joining us on the podcast, thank you so much for joining us there. Always appreciate you guys joining us there. Make sure you rate and subscribe there. Always appreciate your support, and always appreciate you guys listening to us on the podcast. So, Joe, we've got a 7 o'clock matchup, the Bears and the Packers at Soldier Field. Like we usually like to do, let's talk about some of the big storylines over the past week since we last talked to you folks. And obviously injuries are going to be the major storyline here for both teams, where it seems like both teams are actually, it's hard for me to say. I forget how many players. I think it's like 14 players that the Packers have placed on injured reserve. So it's really hard to call them a healthy team, but they're as healthy as they're going to be. The Bears are as healthy as they're going to be. And a good thing about us doing this on Friday, as opposed to, having to with the short week on Friday, as opposed to what we usually do, we get to see the injury report and know who's going to be out. So the big storyline is that CJ Gardner-Johnson is out. He did not practice all week because of his concussion that he suffered against the Lions on Sunday. That's kind of not a surprise after you kind of watched him walk off the field. That seemed like an unfortunate injury for a guy who's had a big team. Ahmed Agbamiga is also out with a concussion, as is Joe Tyron. Those are the three players that are going to be out for. The big news is that Kyler Gordon is listed as questionable for Saturday's game. He was limited on Wednesday's practice and then participant on Thursday. And then the other big storyline is that Roma Dunze also improved to a full participant, and he has no designation for the game. He essentially told us that he's going to be playing. So, Joe, those are the two guys that we are kind of, can Gordon play, and will Rome play? Rome will play, and it seems like I would assume that Kyler is going to be playing.
Yeah, to me, I mean, it's great news, but the question is going to be, how effective are they going to be? I mean, Rome's missed the last, 5 games? Kyler's pretty much missed the whole season. He's tried to play, can't play, injured, the whole thing. We know the story. But if you're getting prime Rome, awesome. If you're getting prime Kyler Gordon, really awesome. I mean, we forget. I mean, remember at the beginning of the season, we talked about who's the best player in the Bears. The consensus pretty much was Jalen Johnson, and then maybe the second best guy was Kyler Gordon. We just haven't seen him this year. So that said, I just don't. I think it's kind of unrealistic to expect Kyler Gordon, assuming he plays, to be the Kyler Gordon of 2024 or 2023. So that's unfortunate. And that's why the Gardner Johnson injury factors in too, because that's just a depth piece. And you're probably going to need as many DBs as possible, especially the way the Packers can riddle you and kind of nickel and dime you to death or hit you downfield. So hit the receiver downfield. So if we can get Kyler back, the Bears at even 90%, that's a huge lift. And Rome, we'll see. I don't know about you. You probably have a better handle on this, Michael. Probably Rome could have played maybe last week, and he was close. It may be different circumstances if he plays, but I'm going to assume he's close to 100%. I don't think the chemistry issue, like getting back, developing a chemistry again with Caleb, will be an issue. But if we can get those guys back at 90% even, I think that really bodes well for the Bears.
Yeah. Neither of those guys are going to be 100% at this point. I don't think anyone's really 100%. Yeah. But right. Rome, we talked about him with earlier this week, and he said, like, listen, like his conditioning and stamina isn't where he wants it to be at this point of the season because he hasn't been able to do his conditioning because he has to stay off his foot, right? Like it's kind of hard to do cardio and kind of hard to do, anything to kind of build your stamina when you're trying to stay off your foot and kind of help it recover, right? So that'll be a factor as well, where I think Rome, I think Rome is going to be an impactful player. I think he'll be an important player, but I don't think that he's not at 100%. He's going to have to build himself up. And the same thing goes with Kyler Gordon. I would imagine that Kyler is going to be on a snap count as well, just based on watching how they kind of approached all these injuries, whether it's Jalen Johnson or whether it was Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, that kind of stuff. I would imagine that they're going to use him at a limited clip. I would assume you probably don't use him on first down. You maybe bring him in on some second downs, and then you play him on third down. They could run a little bit more dime than they have been doing in the past couple of games, which I think is something that Dennis Allen will try to exploit to create, well, obviously to slow down the middle of that defense, but also just to kind of get pressure on Jordan Love because they obviously have been able to do it without it. So, I think, to answer your question, I think Rome, he'll be used, but I think they've got other targets. And I think for Kyler, we'll see him a lot on second and third down, some dime packages, because I agree with you. You're going to need him to kind of slow things down, especially if they do run dime, because I think that'll really play a big factor in slowing down those critical third down situations that it seems like Jordan Love and the Packers love to exploit.
And we know what a good pass rusher he is, a blitzer. Kyler Gordon too. So man, if you get like a bonus sack from him on a blitz, because that's what I think they probably envisioned all season with the healthy Kyler Gordon. But if you can get just one of those plays, that would be huge to help this pass rush, which we know is probably not going to get better until next season and with roster changes in the offseason.
Yeah, I think that was, listen, that was the goal heading into the season, right? Like you wanted to send Kyler Gordon on blitzes. You wanted to send Jaquan Brisker on blitzes. Like that was kind of like, heading into the season, we were talking about, man, like Dennis Allen is going to be able to do so much with this defense because he can move around Kyler all around the defense. He can move Jaquan Brisker around the defense. And obviously that just hasn't happened. Kyler Gordon has played in 3 games this year, and Jaquan Brisker has been kind of forced to play in coverage because of all the other secondary issues that they've had this year. So, I think it'll be really interesting to see how Dennis Allen kind of approaches it this week, just based on, listen, the last 2 games were ugly. Like, obviously they had a chance to beat the 49ers there, but they had no responses there. And then, they got off the field and forced field goals, but I don't know if you can really live off of that in the playoffs, right? Like, you can't be like, all right, like we left them to field goals. Like you got to get some third down stops there, and having Kyler Gordon on those dime packages on third down is going to be a really good way to kind of get those stops on third down.
Yeah, and you talked about it in your article that's in the paper today, shawlocal.com. Is it shawlocal.com? I should know the website, Joseph, shawlocal.com, but your takeaway. It
is shawlocal.com.
I should know that. It's like shawmedia.shawlocal.com. Anyway, your story today, my point being, You talked about how the Bears have allowed a combined 600 passing yards the last 2 games to Jared Goff and Brock Purdy. So that's got to stop, and they got to get off the field. We'll get into this a little more here, I'm assuming.
All right. The other major injury news is that DJ Moore was added with a knee injury this week. He was limited, but he was back to a full. I mean, that guy's just been dealing with a million things at this point, and he just continues to fight on. So that's not going to be a problem. He has no designation. The big other news is that Ozzie Trapillo, it was a quad and knee injury last week, and now it was just listed as a quad injury. He was limited on Wednesday, but a participant on Thursday. He has no designation for Saturday's game. So I would imagine, based off of my hunch, it seemed like they were just kind of like, all right, like, let's just rest this thing against the Lions. Like, no need to make this a bigger deal. And then, like, he seems to be a full go for Saturday. And that's important, right? Because, I know that the 4 guys, the interior and Darnell Wright have done a good job regardless of who's at left tackle, but it really seemed like this offensive line really found its groove as soon as, Ozzie kind of fit into that left tackle spot.
Yeah, right. You want to we talk about continuity. I think that's been one of the biggest strengths of this, reasons why, I should say, why this offensive line has been so good this year is keeping everybody healthy. I mean, think about last year again. I know I hate to do this when I talk about the Matt Eberflus days and last year, because that seems like 100 years ago now. But you remember all the injury issues. So it really wasn't so much maybe a lack of talent, but they just couldn't couldn't start the same 5 guys every week. And this year they really, outside the left tackle position, they've been real fortunate about that. How about Drew Dahlman, by the way? I didn't realize this until it came out this week or last week. He played every single snap this season. Wow. I mean, that really has turned out to be a great signing by Ryan Poles. But anyway, having Ozzie back, further his growth, get him more snaps. I think that's a guy too that, regardless of how he does Saturday night, he needs reps, and this is this game. Even if they lose, this is important for a lot of these guys, because a lot of them will be back next year, and a lot of the core guys. It's going to be good to have this game under their belt, and if they win, even better.
Well, you mentioned that health thing. I think off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly, but I think roughly, Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, and Jonah Jackson have played at least 95% of the snaps this year. I don't think they're all at 100%, but they have played a good majority of their snaps. That's kind of why you kind of go into this playoff run being like, you got to take advantage of this run, because that's not going to happen again. You're never going to have this offensive line, for the most part, has been incredibly healthy. I know Darnell Wright missed 1 game because of his elbow injury, and they've been going through left tackles a little bit there at the beginning of the season. But other than that, this unit has been incredibly healthy, and that just isn't something that you see every single season. So it is kind of a reason why you're kind of like, all right, like, we got to take advantage of this, because this isn't going to happen every single season where you have veteran guys, especially like the Bears added this year, who play every single game. So we talk about luck sometimes and, all the incredible ways that they've been able to win this year, but the injury luck listen, on the defensive side, I'm not going to make that argument for you. Obviously it's been terrible on the defensive side, but on the offensive side and on the offensive line, particularly, the Bears couldn't have asked for a better, bill of health this year.
Yeah, and if you had asked me at the beginning of the season, do you think Jonah Jackson's going to play all 17 games? I'd say, nah. Guys had a history of injuries and then not playing good football the last couple of years anyway. And look at him. I mean, he has been very underrated.
He's been great.
Season. Right? He really has. He is a real physical, athletic guard. He's way better than I thought. They've gotten a lot more out of what I thought they would get out of him this year. But him playing all 17, right, again, we missed the 1 game. Dahlman, Joe Thuney. I mean, what do you need to say there? And you're right. I've talked before about, how they won this year. Next year might be a whole different way. You're winning differently. You're not winning with the running game. Your O-line has been banged up or whatever. But so you won't get the takeaways maybe next year as you did this year. But take advantage of it. And that's important in the playoffs here, as we know, because if you can run the football and if you can play just a little bit of defense, you have a shot.
So before we get into these matchups, the other big storyline of this week was obviously last week Tyreek Stevenson did not play a single snap. When Ben was asked about it earlier this week, he said, they're kind of going with the hot hand. Dennis Allen kind of insinuated that as well when he was saying, it's not primarily something that, it isn't necessarily something that Tyreek is doing wrong. It's basically just, they didn't expect Nahshon Wright to be what he has been this season. And, Jalen has just gotten more snaps here as he's gotten healthier and healthier. He admitted himself, like, listen, he told us this week, like, he's not close to being 100%. He's not going to be 100%. He's going to need a whole off season to get ready to get his body right. And again, listen, I know some people like to pick on him, but I think we forget that he had major surgery a few months ago, and we didn't even know if he was going to play, right? So I understand the critique sometimes when opponents are picking on him, but at the same time, I mean, he had major surgery on his groin a couple weeks ago, or not a couple weeks ago, that'd be insane, a few months ago. But what are your thoughts about how the Bears should approach this? Because I understand you've got Jalen Johnson. You're a better secondary with Jalen Johnson without Jalen Johnson. But how would you approach the secondary where teams have taken advantage of you? And I know that Tyreek Stevenson can be exploited at times, but I do feel like you can get him some reps here. Like, how would you approach the snaps here? Are you keeping it just at Wright and Johnson? Are you throwing Tyreek Stevenson there?
Yeah, I would certainly hope he gets some snaps. Again, you need depth in the playoffs, and knowing that guys are still banged up. Jalen Johnson is not the Jalen Johnson of the past few years here. So I hope they haven't given up on Tyreek. I don't know if there's something going on that maybe they don't want to share, which, that happens. I get it with Tyreek. I don't know. But I think he's a good football player. I know he's had some bad moments, but as we've mentioned this season, he's also had a lot of good moments. And I think he's a guy who can help you win football games. So I think if he gets the opportunity, and we've seen like the kid, going back to here I go again, back to talking about last year, the failed Mary, how he's overcome it, how he's handled it. And I think he might just be a high maintenance guy. I don't know. And I'm just kind of talking out loud here. Not every you have to coach the same way. You have to coach players. You got to figure out. I said this way back when Ben Johnson was hired. Like, you can't just coach everyone the same way. And we know that. And if you've worked in your profession long enough, some people you need to kick them in the butt. Some you need to pat on the back. I don't know what Tyreek is, but maybe he's just a little different. But they got to figure out a way to maximize his potential because there is upside. That's why he was taken. Well, it's a 3rd round pick. So I hope he gets on the field because I think he's got something to contribute.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily a personal issue. Like, I don't think he's being disruptive or anything like that. I don't think it's that at all, quite honestly. I think it's just, listen, I understand kind of where the Bears are coming from, where they're just kind of like, well, this is when Jalen Johnson is good, he's obviously one of the best cornerbacks in the league. And, you've got you struck gold with Nahshon Wright this year with this, all these turnovers. But, at the same time, like, teams are picking on them. They're picking on Nahshon Wright sometimes. And I know he had an illness a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what he's like health-wise as well. And obviously no one is at 100% right now. But, Rick offers a good point here where, the defense shouldn't be different than the offense. Theo struggled, and they went to Ozzie. If Wright and Jalen Johnson struggle, Reek should be put in. I don't disagree with that. My one trepidation with that is, like, listen, we're still dealing with humans here. We're not dealing with robots. Like, there is something to momentum. If you're sitting on the sideline, it's hard to just throw a person in and be like, get in the game action, make sure you're like up to speed. And I know these are professional athletes. I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but there is a human element to this where it's just like, that's hard to do. It's hard to like watch for the first quarter. It's hard to watch for the first 2 drives. And then you just get thrown into action. I know guys, sub in. I know guys do that. So I'm not trying to come up with all these different excuses. I just think It's easier said than done is kind of what I would look at. And I do think it's one of those situations where I agree with Rick, where it's like, all right, if you're not getting the production here, maybe you do give Tyreek Stevenson an option. And I think everything's on the table. I think the one problem here is that, listen, in an ideal world, you would just be like bump one of those guys into the slot cornerback spot, right? And they can like switch with Kyler Gordon. The problem is, I think all those guys are talented, but I think all those guys are primarily outside cornerbacks. So I don't know, Joe, if you think that you can't really, I don't really think you can put three of those guys in there. Maybe you can throw Tyreek in there if you wanted to, but all those guys are kind of those standard outside cornerbacks.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and Deshaun, Jalen, or Tyreek are not going to play that nickel spot, that slot spot. They're not their bodies aren't really suited for that either.
That's probably where they've gotten abused the most, quite honestly. Like that's where Wright and Jalen Johnson have gotten abused the most, like the middle, trying to keep up with guys.
Exactly. So it's tough, right? Because I mean, if it's the last series of the football game to win the football game, are you putting Tyreek out there or Jalen Johnson? You're going to give Jalen the benefit of the doubt, right? And live and die with him, even if he's playing at 80% or whatever it is for him. So I get it too. Sometimes you get squeezed out, but again, when you can't get off the dang football field, let's try something else, even if it's for 2 plays or 3 plays, because we can't have a repeat the last 2 of what we've seen from this defense the last 2 weeks. Otherwise, the season ends for the Bears Saturday night.
All right, well, let's get to that matchup here. Bears and Packers, 7 p.m. Yes, for all you folks out there, this game is on Amazon Prime stream. You can also watch on Fox 32 locally if you're in the Chicago area. So fear not, you don't have to get that Amazon Prime subscription if you don't want to. You can watch over whatever they call it. I forget what they call it now. Over the antenna or whatever they call it. Things that we don't talk about anymore these days. But Joe, what is your number one matchup that you're going to be looking for when the Bears play the Packers on Saturday night?
Well, it's either the quarterback or the quarterback, right? I'm going to take the Packers quarterback against the Bears defense because Jordan Love will be good to go. And, he hasn't played the last 2.5 games, right? Because he got hurt in the first half of that Bears game and he got concussed on the hit by Austin Booker. So is there any rust with him? How effective is he? And is this Bears soft defense just what he needs to kind of break in and kind of get his mojo going again? Because then it can be a long night. Look, I look at it. You tell me, Michael, these 2 games, regular season games, I think the Bears were outplayed by the Packers. They somehow pulled out the one at Soldier Field. Even though
they never led in that game outside of the thing like that.
So if you just watched the game with no scoreboard, you'd say, I think the Packers are the better football team here. They were in Green Bay, they were in Soldier Field. So they've got to be able to stop this football team. We know, they know, both. Everyone knows you got to stop the Jordan Love offense. It's just a matter of how effective is he going to be coming off this concussion and being sidelined the last 2.5 games. And if they needed, maybe he could have played last week. Regardless, there's still got to be, you figure, a little rush, but he's not playing the Texas defense or the Denver defense. He's playing the Bears defense. So he'll be confident. I think if he can't go, he won't go, but he's going to go. So can they get off the dang field? I think we'll know early what kind of night it's going to be, right? If the Packers on their first possession, if they march 30, 60 yards, 80 yards, even if they have to settle for a field goal, just like the Detroit game, I'm thinking negative thoughts, and I don't want to think negative thoughts. But get off the field for crying out loud. So let's see how effective Jordan Love is, and I think we'll know probably in the first series or 2 how if he's back to being the old Jordan Love.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of my storylines that published today. You got to close down those passing lanes. I don't think you're going to completely shut it down, but listen. I keep hearing people like saying like Dennis Allen is bad. Get rid of Dennis Allen. For me personally, with all due respect to the Bears defense, I feel like Dennis Allen has kind of just had, one hand behind his back, this entire season, his entire year. He has not had the defense he expected this whole season. The pass rush hasn't been there all year. His secondary hasn't been there. But so I'm curious to know, like, what is his solution to this? Like, this is what he has at this point. Does he run a lot of dime? Does he kind of maybe take some risks and you send Brisker and you maybe open up that maybe you leave Kevin Byard vulnerable back there and you kind of just leave him back there and you run Brisker. It's risky. I'm not like, that's a lot of trust you're going to have to put in the pass rush, and you're going to have to put in, Jalen Johnson and the cornerbacks to lock down their guys, because if Brisker doesn't land, you're just letting up a one-on-one matchup that someone can explode on. So I agree. You got to listen. The Bears turned away all 5, red zone opportunities in that second matchup. That's not going to happen again. That's just like that. Just like the Bears, gave up all 5 red zone opportunities against the 49ers. Like I think the answer is somewhere in the middle there, right? Like, you're going to give up a couple red zone opportunities, but you got to get off the field earlier in drive. So, I don't know whether they do it based on, sending more blitz packages, whether they send different fronts to confuse Jordan Love, whether Jordan Love's going to be rusty. It'll be really interesting to watch how Dennis Allen approaches it, because quite honestly, you're probably going to need a pick or two. You're going to need a turnover. Like, that's just what the state of the defense is at this point. So I agree that's going to be a major matchup, because if the Packers go down the field like they did on their opening drive last time and they actually execute and don't try to get cute on fourth down, like it could be a very, very long night if that's how things are going to go.
Yeah. It would be nice if the Bears had the first possession of the football game and mounted a good drive where they go down and maybe they score a touchdown at 7-0 before the Packers have touched the football. I think that would give you some momentum there. And then maybe, look, just get one stop. And now you got the ball back again. You got a chance to score some more points up 7-0. That would really be ideal. That's something we haven't seen really a lot of this Bears football team for a while now. So, yes, I think we'll know early on what kind of game we're going to see. It's probably, I would assume it's going to be like the past 2 games, where even though the Packers, we think, were the better team, it was a competitive football game for 4 quarters.
That's something that we haven't talked about a lot, Joe. Do you care about, Ben's kind of been, if I remember correctly, I think Ben has been pretty consistent about when they win the toss, he elects to get the ball. I think he switched it up recently, where now he's like electing for the second half. Do you care about that? Like, I know the common theme has recently been amongst coaches, if you win the toss, do it for the second half so you can maybe double dip toward the end there. But do you care about that at all, or are you pretty much just like, I guess you would want the offense to start off with the ball, right? Because you just want to set the tone there.
Yeah, I think it depends on what kind of football team you have, right? And it's not something I think about. Like, I can't wait to find out who's receiving and who's getting the ball to start the second half. I'm not one of those guys. Some people are. Maybe that's the right thing to be, is where you look at every single scenario. But for me, with this, knowing this Bears defense, how bad it's been, and getting off the field, I think it's just important to establish some momentum here. And the Soldier Field crowd, they're like me a lot of times. We're like, they had no patience. I want to see good things happen right away. And that can you get people who are just like twitchy in their seats and they're angry. It's like, let's get the ball and go down and score. And if you had a really great defense, I said, let them have the ball, because they're going to go 3 and out anyway. But they don't have that team this year. So that said, take the ball, put together a good drive. And really the onus is on this offense. We've been talking about it a lot, it seems, more lately than earlier. I don't know about they've got to be really good. There's so little margin of error for this offense, because they know if they've got to punt it, look out, here comes another 5-minute drive by the opposing team. So it stinks, but that's where they're at this point, which, it's the playoffs. So this is schematically, I don't know how much you can change, how much you're going to put in other side, maybe a trick play or something that you've been saving up all year, but this is who you have at this point. And so we need to see this offense, just because of where this defense is. start fast early. Stinks for them. Too bad, but that's the reality, I think.
Rick brings up a good point. I think for this game, if the Bears win the toss, Ben will play the wind instead of getting the ball. He did that against the Giants. I would agree with that. The forecast doesn't look good. I don't think it's not supposed to be as bad of a, precipitation wintry mix as we expected earlier in the week, but it is supposed to be cold and it's supposed to be windy. So Ben has done that a lot where he'll play the wind and he'd much rather have the wind in his back in the fourth quarter as opposed to starting the ball or whatever. So that will be an interesting matchup to look for as well. All right.
Yeah,
sorry, Joe.
The weather is going to be above freezing. I think it's going to be mid-30. Well, it's at night. It'll be dropping. But if it's
I think at kickoff it's like 29.
20. Okay. To me, that's not cold. I mean, for football. I mean, I get cold in my house and I got to put a sweater on. But for them, that's not cold. It's going to be the wind. How much is the wind going to be a factor? Because if it's 30 degrees, I think that's fine. But we'll see. Hopefully it's just not gusting and it's whipping. But it's Chicago, so it could change in 2 minutes, game to game.
All right, my first matchup is kind of playing off of yours, Joe, and that's just run the ball. You just need to own the time of possession here. And for some reason, we talked about this a little bit on Monday, and Ben has kind of owned up to this sometimes, kind of going away from the run game at times. But listen, when the Bears turn things around in the second half in that first matchup against the Packers, when I think they actually played their best half against the Packers, even though they lost, it was because they ran the ball. They did what they did against Philadelphia, and they just dominated the line of scrimmage, moved down the field, picked up 5-6 chunk yards here or there. Kyle Monangai comes in, then DeAndre Swift comes in. They just kind of go back and forth. And to be quite honest, that's just what you're going to have to do. You want to take listen, I understand that the defense has the onus of, getting off the field. It's up to them. You know what you have at this point with this defense. You got to just limit their time as much as you can. You just got the last few weeks, the Bears have been dominated in time of possession. I think it's the last 4 or 5 games. They've possessed the ball 10 minutes less than their opponents have. That needs to change. And you do that by running the ball. You run the ball, you just control the pace of the game, you move down the field, you keep, picking up third down conversions, and you just get the Packers defense annoyed and you get the Packers offense annoyed, right? Because they want to get off the field and the Packers offense wants to go on the field. And this Packers defense has been vulnerable ever since Micah Parsons and their other defensive tackle that I'm forgetting right now off the top of my head. But they're yes, their defensive, pass rush and their run defense is not the same. And you saw what the Baltimore Ravens were able to do against them a couple weeks ago when Derrick Henry had 300 rushing yards. And even last week, the Vikings were able to run for over 150, something like that. But this run defense is so vulnerable, and it just seems so simple. It seems simple to everybody. So I'm sure it's simple to Ben Johnson, but just run the ball. You can throw it. You can pick up. I'm not saying that you have to do like a meat and potatoes, old school Bears Packers game, but you just got to own the time of possession and you just got to move the ball down the field. I think that's pretty much what you have to do if you want to win this game.
Yeah, I don't know when the last time Swift had a 100-yard rushing game, but the last few games here, you look at what he's averaging per carry, it's still about what he's been doing all year, 5 yards a carry. So to me, that's just I don't know if it's because they get into this mode where it's first down and Caleb throws incomplete. It's second down and 10, and Caleb gets flushed from the pocket. And he's got to throw it into the stands. Now it's 3rd and 10, and then you try to run. It's not an ideal running situation. So it would be nice too if he can just complete some short passes easy, even if you get 5 yards on a short pass. Let me get him in the flow a little bit. Now it's second and 5, and then your running game's gonna get 5 yards on 2 tries combined. So yes, get back to the run. And I want to see Caleb throw for 350. I'm all for that offense and throwing it downfield, and he's capable of doing that. But too many times it takes him too long to get going, and then you abandon the run game. So this is what you do well. Again, next year might be different. This year, you run the football as well as any team in the league. You got this great offensive line. Swift has been great this season. Monungai's been great. The tight ends have blocked really well. Run the dang football, and I think if they commit to it, I think good things will happen. And again, the bonus here is you keep the Packers offense off the field. I see that shot last week on TV, and I know we're careful about not reading too much into a shot on the TV. Like, oh, that guy looks like he's frustrated. DJ Moore looks like he wants to go home. But Caleb, just like that first drive for the line, just like, looking into this, kind of like eye roll, like, can I get on the frickin' field already? I think you need to get him involved and confident early, and you can't do that when the team is going from their own 20 to, inside your red zone.
Other matchups that the guys are talking about, CJ has got the Bears wide receivers versus the Green Bay cornerbacks. I would agree. Ben talked about it, not just the cornerbacks, but the safeties. He believes that the Packers have the best safety duo in the NFL right now, the way that they've been playing. That's going to be something to watch out for because those guys are really able to kind of, pick up, they've been really doing a good job of just exploiting quarterbacks and kind of catching them into disguises and making them make mistakes. So I agree with that. I like that. Rick chiming in with number one matchup is Bears getting off the field on third down. Obviously, it'll be really interesting. And maybe it looks like CJ maybe wanted to change his, but I think both matchups are pretty good too. Packers wide receivers versus cornerbacks. Obviously, we talked about that, getting off the field and shutting down those passing lanes. All right, Joe. What is your surprise prediction for Saturday night?
I'm bad at this. As you know, my surprise prediction is I think DeAndre Swift's going to have a 100-yard rushing game. I think, look, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go. I don't have a problem this year going down with DeAndre Swift. And if he's not good, and Monungai, I think they're going to do this. I would love to see Caleb go march down the field right away and have 70 yards passing on the first drive of the game for the Bears anyway. But I just think we're due, and I think this is the route to give the ball to DeAndre Swift and Monungai. But I think DeAndre Swift's going to have a 100-yard rushing game.
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I agree, especially with what how important he's going to be to what this team is going to be able to do if they want to win. I would agree. That seems like he's just so. He's been able to, even if he hasn't been doing all those big yardages like you said, he still averages like what the Bears are looking for, 4.5 yards. He's averaging 5 yards per carry. Like you can't really be mad at Swift. It's kind of come down to everyone. So I like that surprise prediction. I think that's good. My surprise prediction will be, I don't know what number to set this at because I don't think that it's going to be 0. I think that's an impossible stat, but I think that the Bears are going to commit minimal penalties in this game. I'll go with maybe 2 or 3 because every team is just going to commit a penalty in the games. That's just how these things kind of go. But I think that this team, now watch them kind of prove me wrong on Saturday night. But I think this team has kind of been, for lack of a better word, really ticked off this week for the way that things kind of ended on Sunday. They lost against the Lions. They ended the year with a really flat performance. And I think Ben Johnson, those first few days seemed pretty ticked off about how everything went off. The players seemed pretty annoyed as well. So I think this week's of practice, we're probably really, focusing on the fundamentals. Ben Johnson talked about it too. They cannot have the personal fouls that they had against the Packers the last time they played them. They had 4 personal fouls that cost them 60 yards. Obviously, that DeMarco Jackson penalty on the first drive on the opening kickoff kind of killed the momentum that they had in the stadium. So I think that this team is going to come out really motivated and really disciplined. So I've got them. I'll do 2 because I think 2 is kind of 0 in this essence because teams are just going to create penalties. But this feels like a game that's going to be really disciplined by the Bears just based on how things kind of ended for them at the end of the regular season and what Ben's approach has kind of been throughout the week.
You were breaking up there a little bit, Michael. I didn't get most of what you were saying. I think you were talking about the discipline, though, and the penalties, correct?
Yeah, my prediction was that they're going to have 2 penalties.
Yeah, they've got to be careful here with because these are, again, we already got a defense that has the issues the Bears do. You can't keep committing the personal fouls. I know you want to get after the quarterback, but just be smart about this. It's not worth it. Again, Austin Booker, when he looks back at his final stats for the season, he's going to know he himself a sack this year when he concussed Jordan Love. That was a freebie, and he took it away from himself. And those we see it with this Bears defense. Like everything is so important because of the issues they have that you can't be giving the opponent a free play. That's like when the offense was struggling and they'd false start. It just really a shot to the stomach. I was going to use another word. You cannot have this. So they just need to be more disciplined. Don't give them the Packers have enough offensively. Don't give them. I know I saw the quote Josh Jacobs was talking about how a lot of the Packers. Let's just maybe just talk to that the hit by Booker on Love was a cheap shot. This fans like to talk about this probably more than the players, but Josh Jacobs did address it. So I don't know if they're looking for any payback per se on Austin Booker, but if they are, good. Let them take the bad penalty and bail out the offense, the Bears offense.
Rick's surprise prediction is his surprise is that Joe's surprise actually hits and his MVP hits also. A little bit of a shot from Rick there, but all right. Let's get to our most valuable Bears. I won the contest during the regular season. I think we stopped counting here the last couple of weeks. I don't even remember what happened last week. All due respect to Joe, but I won pretty handily this year. But Joe, I'll let you go first this week. We've never had this problem yet about the playoffs. I don't know whether we reset. Do we do?
Yes, you reset.
I guess we can reset. I guess we'll reset. It is a new season, as Ben Johnson said. We'll do one Caleb Williams pick for the playoffs for however long it is. So I guess you could burn it. And if you think they're going to lose, go ahead. I mean, whatever. I guess it's depending on how confident you feel. But we'll do one quarterback Caleb Williams pick each. Joe, I'll let you go first this week as we start off the playoffs.
Well, Michael, shame on me. It took me a while to figure this out. In fact, it took the whole regular season. See, what I should have been doing all year for the MVP was just pick Joe Thuney. See, because every week you say, hey, he didn't do anything. Look, Joe Thuney was great again. Like, son of a gun, Joe got me again. We should have a limit on the Joe Thuney picks. So I should have picked
I don't know how I possibly any fantasy points for Joe Thuney. So I would have probably said no pretty quickly to that one.
I think I would have swept the whole season from you, Michael, if I had Joe Thuney every week. So that's sad. Well, I'm going to go. Well, I just said my surprise prediction was he's going to rush for 100 yards. So I got to go with my DeAndre Swift for like the eighth time this season. I'm going to pick DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I would agree. I think DeAndre Swift is a good pick. I probably would have gone with him too. Just with I don't know. They keep saying it's like 20-mile-per-hour winds, and the winds kind of get. I feel like the winds are even quicker, obviously, or faster off the lake. So I feel like that's always a factor. So I would have gone with DeAndre Swift. Since DeAndre Swift's off the board, I will go with. I don't know if I want to use my Caleb pick this week, which kind of gives you a preview into what I think about how the game is going to go this weekend. But I'll go with Kevin Byard. He seems to be a turnover machine. And quite honestly, if you're going to win this game, you're going to need a turnover. So I'm going to go with Kevin Byard. I think that he gets an interception. I think he gets the best of Jordan Love. I think it happens early. I think Jordan Love might be rusty on the first couple of drives before he really gets into a groove. So much like their first matchup, I actually think that this game is going to kind of go the way that the first matchup kind of went between these two teams. So I think that Kevin Byard gets an early interception against Jordan Love as he kind of gets into a groove of things. So that's my guy there.
Well, I tell you what, where I probably should have gone with this pick, and you're going to laugh, and you're going to think I'm joking. Cairo Santos.
No, I think that it could very much come down to Cairo.
Right? with the swirling winds, and he showed what game was that? The Packers game where he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Shaping the ball, as the golfers like to say. It could, and I we'll talk about it here in a second. I pretty sure neither of us think it's going to be 45-40. It's probably going to be a low scoring game again, where the kicker will matter. And Cairo, he that'd be a good guy to have. Joe, why did I pick Cairo? I'll stick with DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I do think Cairo will play a major role in this game one way or another, especially with these wins. I think at this point, I forget the Packers kicker's name, but he's pretty familiar with Soldier Field too. Not as much as Cairo, obviously, but he's kicked at Soldier, so I don't think that's going to be as big of a surprise as it would be maybe to, like if the 49ers or the Rams came into town. I think it's going to be that would be completely different than, the Packers kicker coming down. But I do think that Cairo is going to play a major factor there, and will do a pretty good job. CJ chiming in, he's got Kyle Monungai. He's going to be his most valuable Bear. I could see him having a big presence too. Anytime that the Bears have run the ball well, it's because they've had their double duo, right? I know Kyle obviously had that career game against the Bengals when DeAndre was injured, but most of the time this team does well when the tandem is working, right? Like Swift gets Swift to his credit will get the dirty yards too. He'll run for a couple yards too, but he's your explosive threat, where I feel like Monungai is just going to hit you, and he'll pick up those dirty yards as well. So I like that pick as well, CJ. I think both running backs are going to play a major factor and should do really well there. All right, Joe, let's get to our predictions. And before we do get to our predictions, I just want to ask, I feel like this question has been going around Chicago. I don't know whether it's just, obviously my algorithm is telling me this specific thing, so I'm really getting a lot of this. But I've seen a lot of Bears fans being like, if you lose to the Packers, this season is a disappointment, which I can't disagree with that anymore. This is a team that most people thought was going to win 9, maybe 10 games. And I think this team, regardless of what happens, I want this on the record now, regardless of what happens, this team accomplished what it needed to accomplish. It found out that it's got its franchise quarterback. Is he perfect yet? No, there's a lot of development, but he's shown you that he's your leader. And you've shown that Ben Johnson is your coach of the future, without a doubt. I think we answered that question probably 3 weeks into the season. But you went from the number 10 overall pick in the draft and disappointment to you won the NFC North. You're the number 2 seed, and you're hosting a playoff game. I'm sorry. I don't care what happens this weekend. This season is an accomplishment. Is it going to stink for a couple weeks if the Bears lose? Yeah, I'm not going to fight that. That'll be a deflating way to lose the season, especially, as the way they lost to the 49ers and to the Lions. But to call this season a disappointment if you lose to the Packers, I can't get there.
No, I think you said that perfectly. I mean, the two biggest questions we had, just like you said, at the start of the season, we have to find out this season, did they get the coach right? Is the quarterback the franchise quarterback? I think even though Caleb still, there's so little doubt, I think that's clearly been answered this season. That said, like I said, I mean, expectations change as the season goes along, and all of a sudden you're piling up wins. But if you lose the season, if you go out losing 3 in a row, losing 2 out of 3 to the Packers, losing twice to the Lions, and maybe this is okay because the team will look different next year. You still have work to do. Even if you beat the Packers on a last-second Cairo 60-yarder and you lose the following week, you still have work to do, and we know that. But it's going to really stink. Just from a fan's perspective, it's going to stink. Game. I want to see them be competitive. If it comes down to the end again, and Caleb can't make a throw for whatever reason, and they lose, I don't know. There's no moral victories. I get it, but I want to see progress, even in this last game after 17 regular season games. Yeah, I can go into the offseason encouraged by that, encouraged by this guy. I'm not a big fan of or believer in the winning the last game to carry momentum into the next season. I'm not a believer in that. But I think for the core guys, the young players in particular, it's important for them because Look, it's the same in every sport. You're measured in large part by how you do in the postseason. I mean, if you think about your favorite team, pick your sport and how that person did it, you remember like that guy was really good for us in the playoffs that year. That guy, he stepped up. I think it's big for those guys. You know, if they win this game out of sack by some guy who's not going to be here next year, it's not as important because he's not going to be here next year. But they're still in the rebuild process. But boy, if they beat the Packers, whether it's by 1 point or 20, it'll be huge. Season is made. You don't want to lose the next week either. You want to win every time. But that getting this win, I really do think is important. And just to end the season, not in the season, you'd still be playing, but to beat this freaking Packers team. I remember I started thinking about the 2010 game, and I got a headache again. The Cutler got injured, Caleb Haney and BJ Raji was the pick six. Oh gosh, I want to get rid of that. Exercise the demons. Is that the phrase? They need to do that in part because this is a game people will be talking about really for the rest of your life. If they can beat the Packers, this game, it's only the third time they've ever played in the postseason. You can beat this team. It's huge. Period.
Listen, I'm not trying to take away from the symbolism. There's so much symbolism here. The rivalry is going to be more even. You finally slay the giant, all that kind of stuff. And I agree with you. I do think that I think the other thing is, I don't think it's a disappointment, but this is like what you like to say, Joe. Like this is a wounded animal. This Green Bay team, if it was healthy, would probably be a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed. Like this is an opportunity. Like I have heard the thought of you can't lose to this Packers team. If you lost to the Packers and they had Micah Parsons and they were like relatively healthy, and you lose to him, you're kind of like, all right, like they're ahead of us. Like they're what you kind of expected. So I understand that. I understand that this is kind of an opportunity to, slay the giant, kill the dragon, whatever, and all that stuff. But I just think at this point, you're just playing with house money, right? Like you've got your entire offense for the most part is under contract and young. You can go into the offseason, you can manipulate the cap a little bit, and this should be the first year of what is expected to be many, many years of competing for a championship, right? Like this is like, I don't think I'm breaking any news here. You need to take advantage of the moments where Caleb is on his rookie contract, because once he gets that quarterback contract, everything changes. And you've seen it for all these different teams, even the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, all these different teams where once that quarterback gets off of his rookie contract, things just change a little bit. You can't allocate your money as much as you would when he's on his rookie contract. So that's kind of why I agree with the mindset that you got to take advantage of the opportunity that you have right here. And obviously it'll stink losing to the Packers. But to me, regardless, I think after a couple of weeks, I think most Bears fans would realize we've got house money here. Like we are at the beginning of what should be a really fun, for Bears fans' sakes, a fun decade of success with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams.
Yeah, it should be. And you nailed it there with the guys like Caleb, Rome, Loveland, Burden, Monungai, all on their rookie deals. You're paying him nothing essentially. It's too bad they spent really poorly on the defense already. We'll see how they can figure that out. There are ways to figure it out.
You can always manipulate the cap. That's what I've learned in the NFL. There's somehow always a way you can defer money or whatever. You just have to be smart about it and willing to do it.
And that's where the money has to go, right? Because you even look, again, this is a conversation for another day, but if you're like, what do we have to address offensively in the offseason? I don't know. Maybe some more old line depth because Tooney's aged. Noah Jackson isn't that old, but even Darnell Wright is still young on his rookie deal, right? So, this is the window. This is the window. So you should be able to figure this out, but this is step one, and the expectations going into next season will be for them to win again. But unfortunately for them, or maybe fortunate, because you got to get past the Lions and you got to get past the Packers, and the Vikings gave you games both times this year. So this is your window. And again, Green Bay is not going away either. But we do know this. They do not have Micah Parsons playing tomorrow night. That's huge because if he's playing, he's the best player in the field and he's a game wrecker. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I will say this is probably not the last time these two teams are playing a high stakes game, whether it's in the regular season, whether it's in the playoffs. It feels fun that this matchup is going to be pretty valuable over the next hopefully 5 or 10 years. But let's get to our predictions here. Joe, what is your prediction? 7 p.m. on Saturday night at Soldier Field. What are the Bears playing another week, or does their season come to an end on Saturday night?
Well, my history as a Chicago sports fan tells me they're going to lose, but I will be optimistic. I think the time is right. It's been a special season, despite the last 2 weeks losing to San Francisco and the Lions. And by the way, I heard some talk this week, Michael, that the Bears were just kind of dumbing it down, playing a vanilla game plan against the Lions. Well, I hope so because we know that game last Sunday was a stinker. But I'll take the Bears. I'll take the Bears. I'll take them 24-21.
Yeah, that's kind of – listen, right now I feel like all week it's been currently the Packers are a 1.5 favorite. This game has been a pick 'em all week. And that's kind of how I feel at this point. You could tell me any outcome and I would tell you that could happen. You can tell me that the Packers win by 10, the Bears win by 10, the Packers win by 1, and the Bears win by 1. I don't know, quite honestly. Like we saw the previous 2 matchups, it really just depends which Bears team shows up, right? Like, and it's funny because I've heard a couple of people say this, but 17 games into the season, and I feel like I still don't have a great grasp about what this team is, right? Like I don't know which team is going to show up. Are we going to see the team in Philadelphia that showed up and just dominated from the beginning, or are we just going to see the team that showed up in Week 18 that lacked effort? Like I don't know what to expect. I think I've got the Bears winning this one 24-23. It's a 1-point game for me. It's a pick 'em. I think that this offense, I am confident hesitantly about this offense. I think that Ben Johnson was really ticked off this week, and he's really going to make it a point that these guys are going to turn it around this week. I don't know if this defense can keep up. I just don't know if this defense can get the stops. It has shown you it's had a magical ride with all the takeaways and all that kind of stuff. But I could see any outcome happen on Saturday night. I'm going with the Bears 24-23. As you can tell, I'm not really confident in that pick. At this point, I don't think any of us are really confident in this pick because I could very easily see, like I've said, this team having a great performance and advancing, and I can see it kind of just being a dud and losing to a Packers team that is going to come out motivated. So, but you and I both have the Packers or the Bears winning, but I don't think either one of us are terribly confident as much as we have been sometimes this year. Well,
I almost think that there's still more pressure on the Bears to win this game because not that. Because look, there's still people nationally, locally, fans who think the Bears are phonies, and this would be a one way to shut them up, even if they don't have Micah Parsons, even without Micah Parsons. So there's a lot to prove here for the Bears. Be competitive. And look, if they lose, if they play a really good football game and they get beat because the Packers were better, okay. I mean, I could deal with that as much as I could deal with that as a fan. But I want to see a team that's ready for the moment. Last week, for whatever reason, I didn't think they were ready for squat. That game was really a stinker, as I've said like numerous times already since the game ended. So be ready for the moment, execute, and let's see a good football game. And for crying out loud, beat the dang Packers.
Yeah, I think the biggest disappointment would be if what you said, if they came out flat, if they're creating penalties, if they just look lackluster, then I think you head into the offseason like, man, that really stunk for a memorable season. But I would agree. If you go out there, you're putting up points, you're doing stuff cohesively, and the Packers just happen to beat you on a game-winning field goal or whatever, I think you would feel a little bit better. But obviously, it would still stink for a lot of Bears fans if they end up losing this one. CJ's got the Bears winning 24-14, feeling really confident. Jordan Love tries to play and is bad. We'll see about that one, CJ. Bears, Rick's got the Bears winning 20-17. Rick also chiming in our earlier conversation. A great season either way. Nobody expected this. And CJ chiming in. I'm glad either way. If they win, more football. If not, pray for no sophomore slumps. And I think Kyle was chiming in earlier on Facebook. I think that their defense could be a little bit better. And Kyle also said, I hope they got tricks up their sleeves this weekend. I don't know, Joe. How do you feel about that? Do you want Ben? We saw Ben in the playoffs last year do some trick plays, and I kind of felt like that kind of derailed the Lions comeback there. Are you wanting to see any trick plays here in the playoffs, or are you kind of like, let's just stay to the fundamentals? That was one thing that Ben said. He said that he learned through the first two playoff trips that the fundamentals and the basics are the most important things in the playoffs. And I do wonder whether that forces him to stay more true to the run instead of trying to do trick plays.
I think he's right in theory, but it's like, if your offense needs a spark, go for it. Go for it. Look, you gotta empty the bag here, man. All the toys out of the bag. It's win or die. So I don't have a problem with. How about the Lions last week against the Bears? They tried 2 or 3 kind of tricky plays and didn't work. Bears actually had defense very well. Like one of the few things the Bears. I should have mentioned.
I would say it's always bold when you try to run your former offensive coordinator's trick plays against them. That's always. Well, that's a bold move. I don't know if I would agree with that one, but.
That Lions game when David Montgomery got the pitch, wasn't it? And he was going to throw, and I think it may have been Billings who sacked him. And I'm like, is that technically a sack? It is technically a sack, even though it's
technically a sack. He was
yeah. So look, if your offense is staggering again and looks sleepy, Ben's got a lot of tricks. He's probably got like 20 more in storage that he hasn't even. He's maybe saving for the future. I have no problem using one if your offense needs it. But if your offense is humming, ideally, right, that's what you want to see. Like, hey, we're so good. We don't have to have any gadget plays. Are you kidding me? We're just going to run it down your throat. They didn't need any gadget plays against the Eagles. They just kicked their butt. So ideally, that's the case. But if you're struggling, it's like you're losing. Hey, man, you better figure it out because the clock's ticking and everyone's going to leave the stadium. Well, there'll be Packers fans there, but a lot of the people will be leaving disappointed.
All right, that's everything that we've got for this Friday morning. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Appreciate all the comments and the questions in the YouTube live stream. Thank you so much for joining us on our live stream. Give us a like and make sure you subscribe so you find out the latest times we're going to be going live so you guys can ask all your questions. Thank you to all the love and support we got on Facebook. I appreciate all the comments there as well. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, thank you so much for listening there. Make sure you subscribe. If you have noticed, actually, if you've been noticing a lot of more episodes of the Bears Insider podcast, that's because we've started this new thing where all of our articles are put into audio form. So now you guys can listen to all of our Bears articles in the podcast there. So make sure you check those out. That's also a good way to get up on your latest. If you don't want to read, if you're driving a lot and you just want to listen to all my articles and Joe's articles, you can also find them on the podcast as well. So another good reason to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. So for Joe and I, thank you so much for joining us on this Friday. I hope everyone's nerves goes well. I hope everyone enjoys responsibly tomorrow. It's going to be a long day. Make sure everyone paces themselves for Saturday night. Make sure you're checking up with me. I'll be at Soldier Field, obviously, for all your latest coverage. So make sure you're following me at Dwojak 94. Joe will be doing 3 and Out at Joe Aguilar 64. So for Joe and I, thank you so much for joining us on Friday morning. I hope everyone enjoys whatever happens tomorrow, and we will talk to you folks next week.